Hello, and welcome back to Crit and Crit. I'm Scint.
I'm Axion.
And we are continuing through our Final Fantasy V journey through Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Or at least that's what we've written, but can you trust everything you've read?
Depends. Where are you reading it?
In the Daily Prophet, on the front page, of course. Didn't you see today's headline about Harry Potter literally licks corpses by Rita Skeeter?
Oh dear. So
now,
yeah, it's
we're
time
not
to
saying
talk
he actually
about...
does, but we're reporting it.
Yep, it's time to talk about Rita Skeeter, or at least her role as a reporter, quote unquote, and how she meddles with the situation in the Harry Potter story.
We are first introduced to her when the 4 champions, it was supposed to only be 3, but, shenanigans happen, so Harry's now a champion too, are supposed to be getting their interviews for profiles in the newspaper. Which, all well and good, it's a major sporting event, it's getting lots of people's attention, so of course you want to know a little bit about here are the kids who are going to make their schools proud. Except that's not what actually makes it into the paper. Harry, who does not actually consent to the interview but is just kind of shoved along by the adults, barely says anything as Rita just fabricates the story about him being a sad and tortured little boy who just wants a hug from his mommy, all right in front of him. And when he protests, she just puts the article in her bag, notably clearing it up before Dumbledore comes in, and it just gets published. And everyone seems to take it completely at face value. Even people who have known Harry. Ron mentions that, well, not Ron, I think it was Charlie, mentions that Molly loses her mind with worry over him when she sees the article that says he still cries about his parents. Like, Mrs. Weasley, he's been over at your house multiple times at this point. Don't you know him at this point?
She also gets upset at Hermione for completely based on Rita Skeeter's report of her involvement with Harry until the protagonists basically straight up call her on, you're not taking anything she says seriously, are you?
Which is funny because Molly Weasley is one of the first ones to say that Rita Skeeter is a sensationalist reporter who just likes to stir up trouble. Because Rita writes the article about the attack at the World Cup and implies there might have been dismembered bodies that aren't being reported. She never actually says that anyone died, but she says, I wonder if this will cover up the rumors of any deaths. Well, there's going to be rumors now, thanks Rita. So, she knows not to trust Rita. But Rita hits those emotional sad buttons so well that she falls hook, line, and sinker. So we know that she was going to be. She already knew to tell Arthur, don't take her too seriously. It's Rita Skeeter. You know she just wants to make you look bad because she solved more papers that way. But the instant it talks about Harry, for whom Molly has a very severe soft spot because obviously she's a good mom and she sees little boy does not have good mom, I want to hug him and make him feel better. She falls for it completely because it hits the right emotional note. Even though she actually has probably the better access to figure out the information on this than anybody else, because if she didn't even if she didn't feel comfortable writing directly to Harry, her son is his best friend who tells him everything. So she could have at any point written to Ron to say, hey, I saw this article. Is it true? Should I be upset with this? Should I be trying to correct it? But because people don't think about what they read in the paper if it says has the right emotional cues, this ran rampant for a year, completely shaping how everybody saw Harry and Hermione and other kids. So, even worse, it completely misrepresented the other champions. Crumb and Fleur barely got mentioned, Cedric got left out completely, and yeah, Hermione actually got basically assaulted as a result of this, because some of the witches who read the story sent her Bubertuber pus, which they had mentioned from Care of Magical Creatures, you don't want to get on your skin. So, essentially, we can presume, middle-aged adult used biological warfare against a 14-year-old girl based on a rumor.
I mean, how do you respond to that beyond what the heck?
And that's the thing. That's kind of how some people are. Any excuse they can find to hurt other people for whatever reason, some people will take it. There's a reason you get to hear so many stories about crazy customer service people.
Oh, you.
But, yeah, so it's not just a case of, oh, well, it's silly tabloid stories, no one takes them seriously, because, as this one showed, people do. And
People
there are
actual real,
and there are actually real consequences to it, which we'll see play out even further later on, because at the end of the book, after basically Harry tells Rita to step off and leave him alone, he doesn't appreciate she's writing about him, she starts getting exclusive interviews with the Slytherins, who are happy to dunk on Harry because they can't stand him, and the Wizarding world starts to get the picture painted of he's a deranged lunatic. And one person in particular who believes this is Cornelius Fudge.
Yep, and we saw at the beginning of the last book that Fudge was very concerned about Harry. He was very worried that Harry was going to be in danger because of
Sirius Black.
Yeah. And he basically went out of his way to go protect him. Now, admittedly, we know in hindsight, from things that happened later in last book, that much of what Fudge was doing was very selfish to protect his own interests and to be seen as doing something actively helpful in the wake of Sirius's escape, to give the impression that the Ministry was taking this seriously and being active in the investigation, which, as we saw in Book 2, is a very common position for Fudge to take. He wants to be seen as active and involved and helpful more than he wants to actually be helpful. But, he basically takes that position from where he was in last book and flips it on its head because now it is politically more expedient for him to see Harry as a liability.
Yep. Fudge seems to basically just view Harry as whatever he needs to view as for political sakes. So, Harry Potter basically has been just a symbol for the Wizarding community, so of course I want to protect the symbol of our victory over Voldemort to help preserve public morale and my own image. It's not until Book 4 that Harry starts to kind of brush against his aims, and So really, we've already talked about the fact that Fudge completely turned on Harry the moment Harry insisted Voldemort is back, you need to do something about it, because Fudge did not want to be the one to break that bad news. And it's exacerbated by Rita's expose of the true facts about the crazy little boy. That Fudge, either he believes it wholeheartedly, or he just sees it as a politically expedient piece of evidence to lean on to start disparaging Harry, which we'll see play out more in the future.
And this is just really just setting the stage for how things are going to be going forward with Fudge.
Everything is about politics and his own image.
Nope, I don't feel like fighting this group. Not in this configuration.
Run, run, run away.
We're trying. There we are. But yeah, this is kind of something that we've seen coming, more or less, with Fudge just over the course of the past few books. Is he is quite happy to, at best, disregard, at worst, completely ignore anything that is inconvenient or harmful to his desires. He wants to put Hagrid in jail because it will look good for him to be seen as being active and doing something, regardless of the fact that Hagrid is not guilty, and putting him in jail will not actually stop the crime, because he's not the one actually responsible. He wants to keep Harry safe from Sirius Black because Harry is a symbol to the wizarding world, and him being seen as protecting Harry is going to be publicly popular.
Yep.
But he does not actually care about Harry as a person.
Yep, though I think we've gotten a little bit off in the weeds here since we were talking about journalism.
Right.
But this is tying into how journalism kind of impacts the greater politics of the setting, even as just a trashy paparazzi tabloid reporter who has very sketchy means of actually getting her information, as Hermione figures out, not before everybody else, because the Slytherins were very clearly in on it because they were talking to the beetle in their hands, which makes me wonder if Hermione could maybe actually have a case against them for communicating with knowingly an unregistered animagus, which is the secret. Rita Skeeter can turn into a beetle, which, I'm gonna be honest, that seems like one of the most terrible animagus forms you could possibly take, because unless you're like that one beetle you could literally drive a truck over and it's fine, you have become one of the most fragile creatures on Earth. Yes, you can get into almost anywhere you want, but you are at high risk of losing your life. Because it's never actually explained what happens if you die in your animal form. Like, do you revert back? Or do you have the same resilience a human would? Or, I don't know. I'm overthinking this. But, yeah.
I mean,
Rita,
that's what we do here.
I know. Overthinking this beyond the scope of literary analysis and into actual, like, physics of non-existent magic. You know, as you do. But, like, Rita, in the form of a beetle, was just sneaking around various places in the school. And how often do people look twice at a book?
Honestly, like, I typically don't unless I am actively trying to, kill the bug.
Yeah, so if you're confident in your ability to not get squished by things, you can go almost anywhere as an insect. Which is what she did. She was crawling around the statue during the Yule Ball and overheard some very dangerous information about Hagrid, which she promptly published to try and get him fired. She was a water beetle. Well, it was mistaken for a water beetle after the second Triwizard Cast, which is where she got to hear Hermione talking to Crumb and got to write her completely baseless story about the love triangle between Harry, Victor, and Hermione, which got Hermione in actual physical danger. Yeah. Which, getting all of the spying on people is very sketchy. I'm not sure the Wizarding World's laws on these things. Because Hermione didn't make it sound like Rita was going to get in trouble for eavesdropping. Rita was going to get in trouble for being an unregistered animagus, which is something they can police. So, yeah, eavesdropping is not the best thing, but there's no law against it. Publishing something like that, I believe the term that you could use is approaches actual malice, meaning I'm going to get my lawyers for libel. I don't know how well libel laws work in the Wizarding World. I'm not even sure how strong they are in the UK versus the US. It's all sorts of things. But, yeah, Rita is not exactly showing herself to be a bastion of journalistic integrity here. So, I mean, that's not really a surprise given the quality of work we got to see from her. And I'm wondering how much of that has to do with her quill, because she does her interviews completely hands-free, and the quote writes in all these sensationalized headlines. I wonder if it's just loaded with like Mad Libs of what's the hot button phrase I can use today, because I know the phrases I can use out of context that will sell the most papers, and I don't care how accurate it is, because she very clearly does not care how accurate it is. Hermione's story gets published basically entirely because Hermione calls Rita out for being a hack.
Yep. And as far as we're aware, there's really only two major groups of news sources in the Wizarding World that we're introduced to. There's the Daily Prophet, which
is, as of this moment, the only publication we really know about.
Yeah.
There's another one that comes up later, which we'll get to when we get to it.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. Sorry, that's why I went quiet. I was trying to remember if we'd been introduced to that other one yet.
Nope, that's it. That's the next book. I just finished my reread for that one, so when we start with that, that'll be fresh.
But yeah, there don't seem to be a whole lot of varied options for people to get their information from in the Wizarding World. We sometimes in our day-to-day life complain about the lack of reliable information and lack of real options for people getting their news. And just in America, and compared to how things are in the Wizarding World, we've got it surprisingly good.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's any sort of, ethics committee with regards to Wizarding journalism. Rita Skeeter is known by almost anyone who has had any experience with her as a very skeevy reporter who twists facts for the sole purpose of selling papers. If there are Wizarding lawyers and so on and so forth, it would not surprise me to hear that the Daily Prophet has gotten multiple complaints and possible threats about the stuff she's publishing, so either there's no legal recourse, or she sells them enough papers that she can do whatever the heck she wants, which is probably more accurate.
Yep. I mean, can't really guess beyond that with the limited information we have, but we do know that, at least thus far in the story, for all that Rita has done, there's never been anybody who's made an effort to put a stop to her.
Until Hermione, who,
Well,
if... This is actually going to be something we have to talk about in a couple episodes, I think. Hermione, if you had told me in the first book, Hermione was going to be the one who takes an out-of-the-box solution to stop a rampaging reporter, Hermione would not have been the character I would have expected. Especially not if you told me Hermione stopped her by imprisoning her in a small glass bottle and blackmailing her into never publishing an expose again. On pain of, I will tell them you're an unregistered animagus and I'll take you down with me. I would not have pictured we might be killed or worse expelled Hermione Granger to be the one resorting to blackmail. It's effective, but that's how you know character development has happened. Because what we saw in this book, it is not at all breaking her character for her to take the step.
Yep.
She has been moving in this direction. It's just kind of surprising to see.
Yep. We've reached beyond the point where it's subtle character development in the background and is now full-on in-your-face, this is how things are now. 4 books in, and let's be fair, if you're 4 books into the story and your characters haven't changed somewhat, that's probably something that needs to be worked on.
Yep. So yeah, we'll have to talk about like character development once we get through the rest of our talking points, I think. But yeah, I'm not really sure what else you can say on this that we haven't kind of touched on or doesn't verge into other topics we've already covered, like our sidetrack about Fudge there.
Yep, we'll have to get into that.
Yeah, so I guess just to sum up,
future episode.
I guess just summing up, well, Rita Skeeter is a paparazzi tabloid stand-in who has far too much power due to the magic of capitalism, selling papers, and it has actual legitimate real-world consequences that reach far beyond just this book, for better or mostly for worse. So be very careful with how you publish things and how you consume media that is purporting to push an idea on you that you think is a little maybe too loaded to be pure fact. So I guess fact-checking is our answer for everything. Yay.
Yay. Little too on the nose there at the end, but not inappropriate. Anyway, we'll see you all next time.